Hey everybody, Adam here with Sports Capitalist, coming at you with our second ever NASCAR breakdown video, breaking down the Ruoff Mortgage 500 at Phoenix. I had to look it up to make sure I was pronouncing it correctly. Before we get any further, let's get the standard stuff out. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to give any feedback about the breakdowns, drivers you might feel good about, some you might feel less good about. Information is obviously key in the world of daily fantasy, and be sure to join our Discord in the link below. That's where you're going to get all of our final projections, as well as a plethora of other sports. March Madness is coming up. The baseball season looks like it's starting back up again, and then we do during the seasons, NFL, NBA, all that kind of stuff. So make sure to follow it down below, and we will jump into it now. Before we get into the breakdowns, I do want to mention something I said in the last video, which is I would like to wait until after qualifying to do these breakdowns, but because that seems like it's going to be a short window between the qualifying and the actual race, the feedback that I got was, that these videos were helpful, at least as a starting point, and doing it after qualifying, between then and the race is going to leave a really short window between, to watch between then and the actual race. So in order to get the content out there to you quicker and just some general opinions and everything, wanted to do these earlier so that you have a better chance to watch the video. And then obviously for any final projections and all that kind of stuff, you can join the Discord below. Knowing that, let's talk about the previous race real quick. At Las Vegas, the Pennzoil 400. Some guys that we liked, didn't like. Kyle Busch obviously was an incredible pick. I didn't touch on him too much in the last video, but then qualifying happened and he was a no-brainer pick, starting in very last. Probably should have won the race if Eric Jones doesn't cause that caution towards the end there. And then obviously Alex Bowman, the ultimate opportunist, comes in and steals it. I wanted to try and wear a different hat for each video, but obviously since Alex Bowman just won the previous race, and he's my favorite driver, I decided to break this one out again. I got the hack shirt from when Denny Hamlin was none too pleased about what you could call another stolen victory. It doesn't bother me as a fan if he's putting himself as an opportunity to get there. So that's just what he does, and if that's how he wins races, that's how he wins races. I also want to touch on it. I've had 2 weeks in a row that were effectively a push because I've been overexposed 2 weeks in a row on the guy that finished last place in fantasy points, at least on FanDuel. Maybe they had some fastest laps that didn't, put them in the category in DraftKings. But last week it was Ryan Blaney. I had a good chunk of Ryan Blaney that bit me. And then the previous week was Christopher Bell. But my exposure to other people allowed both weeks to essentially break even. So, it seems to me that the exposure system is at least not losing. So hopefully that'll break out. I can't imagine. I mean, it would be terribly bad luck if this week I was also overweight on the person that finished last place. So we'll just have to hope that doesn't happen again, but that's NASCAR, so I wouldn't rule it out. So getting into some of the guys that I like, and we'll kind of break down pricing and how I initially feel about it. Obviously, as a disclaimer, just like in the last video, some of these are going to depend on qualifying. Again, the example was last week I wasn't, super high on Kyle Busch until obviously he was starting in the very last spot, in which case I would have told you that he's a no-brainer play. I was overweight on Kyle Busch. He still was only like in the 50s in terms of ownership, and I was above that, so that helped save my day. And also being overweight on William Byron and Alex Bowman last week helped me out. So we'll break down FanDuel first, and then we'll jump over to DraftKings. A lot of the pricing, at least the order of people, is relatively the same, but there is one big misprice that I'm going to talk about once we get into the DraftKings part of it. So on the FanDuel side, at this track, first of all, let's preface this by where the research is coming from. So Phoenix, We're looking at short flat tracks. So I'm looking at previous Phoenix data as well as Richmond and New Hampshire, and then I'm taking a glance at the Nashville race. Martinsville, not a great race to look at in terms of comparing it to Phoenix. But the Nashville one I'm kind of glancing at. It's important for maybe some other people, but I was at that race, and even though I had a great time, it was Kyle Larson essentially from start to finish. It was 300 laps, and Kyle Larson led 264 of them. So not much that it's going to tell you in terms of that. But so, Phoenix races, Richmond, New Hampshire, all that kind of stuff. So, and the big thing is we kind of know that there's two main teams that are kind of really good at these types of tracks. And for some of them, it depends on the track. It's not universal across the board. But Joe Gibbs Racing and Team Penske are the guys that we really want to look at this week. I'm not crazy about the Hendrick cars. And I think Kyle Larson, people are still going to look his way because he's Kyle Larson, but I probably am going to be underweight on him. But I'll cover Team Penske, Hendrick Motorsports here in just a little bit. So first, let's talk about Joe Gibbs. Martin Truex Jr. At first glance, he's my pick to win the race. And that 13.5 price tag is a little bit of sticker shock compared to what he's been at in previous weeks. But at Phoenix, he's an incredible play. He won, I believe he won the first Phoenix race last year. Yes, he did. And then arguably should have won the championship race in Phoenix before a late restart allowed Larson and Elliott to get back in it. But, for a good chunk of the later race, it was really between Truex and Hamlin for that championship. So he's been great here. He won the Richmond playoff race. At the first Richmond race, he placed 5th. And then placed 12th in New Hampshire, so didn't do incredible there, but that's still a pretty good sample size to go off of. So I like him to win the race. I think he's currently plus 750, so I like those odds for Truex specifically. He's probably my favorite play in terms of like the top priced guys. Elsewhere, Denny Hamlin. I'm actually, maybe it's because of his performance so far this season, because it's been bad, but he's only 11.5, but he's, I think, right there with Truex in terms of chance to win this race. He's at plus 950. That's probably my favorite outright winner bet at the moment, is Hamlin plus 950. So, and he's only 11.5, so I will probably be overweight on Denny Hamlin. I don't know if his recent struggles are going to affect his ownership. Hopefully it does, because I would like to be overweight on Denny Hamlin at Phoenix. But we'll just have to see. And then Kyle Busch. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip over him. I don't like him as much as Truex. He honestly, as an Alex Bowman fan, Kyle Busch should have won that race last week. And he was pretty upset about it, and rightfully so. And just really an impressive showing. Started, all the way in the back, with his backup car, and I don't want to or underestimate backup cars, but still pretty impressive all things considered. Fights his way up to the front, leaves a good chunk of laps, and then it's just that late caution put the Hendrick guys in front of him, and just couldn't close it out. But if that race goes green for the rest of the way and Jones doesn't wreck, Kyle Busch probably wins that race. I don't think Truex passes him. But at this track, I'm not feeling him as much. I think some people are going to see, what he did and kind of ride the hot hand, if you will. Or maybe even go for like a revenge narrative kind of thing, which valid arguments, especially when it comes to Kyle Busch. But I'm not super into him. If he's a place differential play, great. But in terms of like dominators or guys in the upper price tier, probably looking elsewhere. Although if I'm really looking at FanDuel, if I'm looking at these top 5, Kyle Busch is probably third or so, but no higher than that. So I'm not really feeling him this week. I might be a little underweight on him, or just even with the field at that point. And then finally, Christopher Bell, has a really solid history at these types of tracks. So he's only $9,000. I think that's a really great like mid-priced guy. If we break down kind of his finishes, the 2 Phoenix races, 9th, where's he at here? 9th again, Richmond, first Richmond race, 4th, second Richmond race, 3rd, New Hampshire, 2nd. So he's, does he have, and potentially has some dominator upside, which at 9,000, that's a pretty good spot to be at. So Christopher Bell, I really like. So offhand, if I'm ranking how I feel about the Joe Gibbs drivers, just based on, again, initial gut feeling and pricing, before qualifying, I would probably rank them Truex, Hamlin, Bell, and then Kyle Busch. I'm just not feeling Kyle Busch at the moment. So the next team, Team Penske, Joey Logano leads the way there at 12,000. Really like him. I think, let me see where my model has Logano. So it has him as the top Ford. So he's really good here. So first Phoenix race, 2nd, playoff Phoenix race, 11th, 3rd at the first Richmond race, 4th at New Hampshire. Let me see over here. 5th at the playoff Richmond race. So I really like Joey Logano this week. I would he's probably in this top 5 here. He's probably my second favorite behind Martin Truex Jr., just in terms of pricing and everything. His teammate Ryan Blaney is $1,000 cheaper at 11,000. Blaney also a very good play here. You get right below Logano in my model, but a solid play here. Now, I wouldn't overestimate him because, again, he's got that reputation about Martinsville, and again, I'm not really looking at Martinsville, but Blaney is still a really solid play. I think I would rather play Logano because I think people are going to want to save that money with Blaney, so I think there's a little bit of an edge if you go up and get Logano. So just my 2 cents there. And then their final teammate, Austin Cindric, is down to 7,800. He was 8,000 last week, I believe. Love him at that price. Again, Team Penske, historically good here. Austin Cindric, very talented driver. He's in Penske equipment. It kind of the same reasons that I liked him last week. I don't think it quite worked out, but he's got that upside. And at 7,800 on FanDuel, that's about what you're looking for. So really like him, but we'll talk about some of the other value guys down there here in a little bit. So I think in terms of ranking Team Penske at the moment, it's probably in the order of price. It would be Logano, Blaney, Cindric. So we'll keep it at that. Now, Team Hendrick, I mentioned at the beginning, probably going to be underweight on Team Hendrick. The only driver that I might be overweight on would be Chase Elliott. It's just, they just don't translate as well on this track type. And so I'm looking at my performance model. So Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Bowman's a little bit there, and then William Byron. So, if I had to pick, like if I'm just making like one lineup and I had to pick one of the top guys. I'm probably taking Chase Elliott over Kyle Larson this week and saving that money. It just hasn't quite been there. Again, unless you want to really count in the Nashville race, and kind of how you feel about that, that's totally fine because Kyle Larson absolutely dominated that race. But outside of that, I don't think he's worth the most expensive on FanDuel. So I might be a little underweight on him. William Byron at 10.5. I was really big on William Byron last week. I'm not feeling him this week. Of the Hendrick drivers, I think I like him the least, honestly. And especially at his price. You got Blaney and Hamlin right there, or even Logano if you can go up and afford him. You could save money and get Bell. And we'll talk about Kevin Harvick here in a moment. So, I don't really like Byron. Bowman, obviously coming off of a win. Maybe that affects his ownership. As an Alex Bowman fan, I would be the first to admit he is streaky. He's either going to, there doesn't seem to be a ton of gray area. Most of the time it seems like top 5 finish or he hit the wall. That's just kind of how Alex Bowman rolls. So he's kind of a high risk, high reward. And knowing that, I can't really bring myself to bank on him doing it again 2 weeks in a row. Especially again with the other options around him. So, I wouldn't say like a complete fade on Bowman, but again, just Hendrick in general, I'm not feeling as much this week. And then I do want to cover Stewart-Haas just a little bit. The first one's going to be obvious. Eric Almirola. If you don't already know, Eric Almirola at short flat tracks is amazing somehow. And he's been really good this season so far already. Like in just every race that he's been in, he's been phenomenal. Might be his last race, with Stewart-Haas, or last year, I should say. Sorry. This won't be his last race, but, he's been really, really good. Just looking at, finishes and all that. And I don't mean to leave out fastest laps and laps led, but just looking at some of these finishes, 11th in the first Phoenix race, 6th in the Phoenix playoff race, 6th at the first Richmond race. He won the New Hampshire race last year. The playoff Richmond race, 14th, so not as great. And then the Nashville race, he finished 4th and started on the pole. So he's, you can't say enough about him. The only reason to, maybe go underweight on him is if he qualifies as like a place differential play and you think he's going to be super chalk. But again, I wouldn't. He's just that good at short flat track, so I wouldn't go a little more than underweight on him in that case. But that would be the only reason to do so. Now, but I actually really like Kevin Harvick this week. I think the fact, if you look at some of these guys that are priced around him, Hamlin, Blaney, Byron, Bell down here, and obviously his teammate Eric Almirola. I think a lot of NASCAR DFS players are wise to the idea of Eric Almirola at these tracks. So I think that's actually going to pull some ownership off of Kevin Harvick. So I actually really like Kevin Harvick as a play this week, just because I think he's at a weird price point where he's going to be under-owned. So I will probably be overweight on Kevin Harvick this week, and we will see how that works out. Hopefully he doesn't end up like Blaney and Bell, where he crashes and ends up being the last place fantasy driver. So now obviously, again, if he's a place differential play, that might change his ownership, but I really like Kevin Harvick this week as a DFS play. The other two Stewart-Haas guys, not really feeling as much. I did talk about in our Discord, I wrote up Cole Custer as a pivot off of the Chris Boucher chalk because they were both place differential plays, but I think a lot of people were talking about Chris Boucher. And that wasn't. It's hard to say. He wasn't doing a ton, Cole Custer, and then his engine failed. So I guess we'll never know if that would have worked out. But he wasn't really getting out of the 20s anyway. And at this type of track, I'm not really feeling him this week. And speaking of Chris Boucher, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I said Boucher last week. I'm saying Boucher now. I'm gonna go with Boucher until somebody corrects me on it. Place differential play last week was a solid play, and he's $1,000 cheaper now. So I think that should tell you kind of how FanDuel's feeling about him. I'm not crazy about Chris Boucher this week. I think there's a lot more interesting value guys that you can go for. Chase Briscoe, I think, is just because we've seen some of the speed. I think Briscoe's worth having some exposure to. That's about where I'll leave it. I think he's at an okay price point. He's at a weird price point at 68, so I think he'll also be under-owned. So I think it still will be worth a look at Chase Briscoe. But that's about all the time that I'll spend on that. So looking at some of these other guys, Tyler Reddick, my performance model isn't crazy about him or Austin Dillon on that team. My model actually prefers Kurt Busch or Ross Chastain in that category. I think they're priced appropriately. Ross Chastain obviously had that crazy, ton of dominator points, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know that he repeats that, but he had a really fast car. So, and then obviously Kurt Busch has been a solid play so far this year, mainly as a place differential play in any race that he's been in. So, I do like Kurt Busch at 8,000. Ross Chastain, I don't mind at 7,500, but I think, there's some cheaper options that can be had. Brad Keselowski, 83. His price is starting to drop, and I think rightfully so. He's just he seems like he's driving his new car well, and then like something happens and he just like forgets how to drive for half a second, and then he's out of the rest of the race. So could be a tournament play because maybe some people are souring on Brad Keselowski. He's been, obviously he was with Penske before, but he's been really solid at these track types, so that might be worth something, and just kind of that driver skill category. I think I'm talking myself a little bit into Brad Keselowski this week, but it's really hard to trust him, given what we've seen so far this year. AJ Allmendinger is driving the 16 car. I do like him at 7,000. I think he's, the types of tracks that he's typically good at don't exactly translate to here, but the skill set is similar. So, I like AJ Allmendinger at 7,000. So, when I was talking about like Ross Chastain, I think you could actually pay down for Allmendinger. I like Allmendinger better than Briscoe, Jones, Dillon, those kinds of guys. Let me see what my model thinks about Stenhouse. Not great. At the Stenhouse point, for Stenhouse, I'd probably rather play Allmendinger. I'd probably rather play Chastain over Stenhouse at this point. Again, when we're talking about some of these value guys, qualifying is going to have a big thing to do with it. But just, again, this is at first glance pricing and how my model sees them at, previous track performance. Let's see if there's any other FanDuel guys I want to talk about. Todd Gilliland. I had some good exposure to him at, I think it was Daytona. I like him again this week. I think he's the best punt play at 2,500. So I do like him. But other than that, I don't think you have to go down that far. What does Harrison Burton look like here? Harrison Burton's not bad at 4,500. So yeah, of the sub 5,000, I would probably look at Burton and Gilliland. I'm not terribly interested in Bubba this week. I think there's a reason he's only $4,000. He had a solid showing last week, but obviously last week was Vegas. This is Phoenix. They don't match up. So yeah, that's about it on FanDuel. Now going over to DraftKings, we'll see if there's any misprices. So Kyle Larson is still the most expensive. Now the one that I kind of teased at the beginning of the video was Martin Truex Jr. So he's the second most expensive on FanDuel, but he's only $9,800 on DraftKings. That's a nuts misprice. I would be all over Truex. I'm sure other people will be too, but I would ride that chalk. I would be all over Truex at $9,800. Now I think a lot of people are going to think that. So I think, if you're doing multiple lineups, it's worth pivoting to Denny Hamlin because I think he'll be under-owned exactly for that reason. 9 fantasy points per race. That's great. I think so. People are going to see that. They're going to know how he's performed so far this year. They're going to see that Truex and even Blaney are cheaper, or you could pay up and get Logano. So I think Denny Hamlin is a very interesting tournament play on DraftKings off of Truex. I mean, you could obviously, try and squeeze both of them into your lineup. But, if you're trying to go contrarian, I think he's going to be a really interesting pivot off of Truex because I think he'll be under-owned because people will gravitate towards Truex's price. Kyle, I talked about Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch, Hendrick in general. I don't mind Logano at this price, but I honestly might rather play Hamlin over Logano if I had to pick one in this particular case. So Blaney, we talked about Byron. Really like Harvick's price still at $9,100 on DraftKings. That's about the same comparatively with FanDuel. So I do like Harvick as a place differential play. Yeah, Almirola is going to be super chalk on DraftKings, only $7,900. That's pretty nuts. Christopher Bell at 83 is a great play there. What was he on FanDuel? 9,000. So yeah, Christopher Bell at 83. Almirola is going to be chalk at 79, but you almost have to kind of eat it at that point. Talked about Harvick. I like Allmendinger's price at 72. Cindric's not bad at 77, but I mean, Almirola's, he might be a tournament play because Almirola's going to take a good chunk of ownership off of him. Let's look at some of these cheaper guys. So yeah, Burton at 57, Gilliland at 49. So the same two guys I talked about on FanDuel, kind of in that lower tier. I do still like. A lot of these guys, other guys aren't really moving the needle for me. Let me see if I'm overlooking someone on my performance model. And also okay. So yeah, the more I'm looking at my model, the more I'm kind of buying into Ross Chastain. Although, Kurt Busch is right there, but obviously Ross Chastain is cheaper on both sites. And, kind of riding the hot hand there. Not really feeling Eric Jones this week. He was crazy high owned last week, and again, I think that was kind of riding the hot hand. But at that point, I'd rather play Allmendinger at 72. And I don't mind Keselowski at 82 at that price point either. So, just like last week, we'll wrap it up here. Just make a couple dummy lineups. So we'll start on FanDuel. So I'm going to start with Truex. Probably throw in Hamlin. And then let's take out Hamlin because then I'm going to do Bell. And we'll see where that leaves us. I don't want that much JGR. Let's maybe grab a Penske guy. Let's go with Logano. So that leaves us 77 per. So let's see if we go down to Allmendinger at 7, and then you can grab Almirola. That's a great lineup. Martin Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, AJ Allmendinger, Eric Almirola. That's a really good lineup for this track type. If you wanted to, save even more off of, Allmendinger and go down to Burton. So Burton, and then let's see if we can upgrade Bell. And then you could get Hamlin if you wanted to. Truex, Hamlin, Logano, Harrison Burton, Eric Almirola. I think Burton and if you're even punting at Gilliland, are going to offer you like a crazy amount of good drivers up towards the top. But as the previous lineup we showed, I don't think you have to do that. So, Allmendinger's at 7, and so Truex, Bell, Logano, Allmendinger, Almirola. Now I do want to try one real quick before we do to DraftKings, because again, I don't want to put too much time on it, because it's pre-qualifying and everything, but I'm going to throw in Harvick, because again, I'm probably going to be overweight on Harvick this week. So let's do Harvick Truex. Let's throw in Almirola. Let's make it a Stewart-Haas lineup. And that leaves us 9,000 per, so you could go Bell and Bowman. That's not bad. You could go Kurt Busch and Tyler Reddick. I'm not really feeling that one. What if I grabbed... Yeah, Cindric's going to be the same thing. Go down to Chastain, and you get Byron, but I'm not feeling Byron this week. So at this one, you might have to save just a little bit on one of those spots. So if we go down to Allmendinger, and you can grab Blaney. Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., Eric Almirola, Allmendinger, and Blaney. That's pretty solid. If I wanted to try and fit Hamlin in there, take out Allmendinger. And yeah, that's kind of the gross range with Jones and Dillon, Suarez. I'm not really feeling those guys, so might be a little harder in that aspect. But we'll just have to, or if you wanted to fade Almirola for whatever reason, go down and grab Brad Keselowski. And that doesn't do much for that last spot, but Hamlin, you can go up. Let's go up and grab Logano even. See how much we need to save there. So yeah, Keselowski, Logano, Burton, Truex, Harvick. It's not bad. I think people are going to struggle with, like I just did, trying to structure a lineup around Kevin Harvick, and I think that might be a little bit of an interesting leverage point. So on DraftKings, we're going to start with Truex, obviously, at 9,800. Let's make Logano like our top guy. Let's go grab Burton at the bottom. Let's grab, Almirola is going to be chalk at 79. So 81 per. So, Bell and Cindric. I like that. Truex, Logano, Burton, Almirola, Bell, Cindric. Or, instead of Cindric, going down to Allmendinger. And then you could see if you could upgrade Bell at that point. Not really. I like Bell better than... Well, you could get Kurt Busch, but I still kind of like Bell better. Let's see if you could upgrade Burton at that point. Not really. So that's kind of a tough spot, but let's take out Allmendinger then and go down to, let's put in Briscoe. I don't mind Chase Briscoe this week, and then you could upgrade Bell to Kevin Harvick. I think that's a Truex, Logano, Burton, Almirola, Harvick, Briscoe. It's a lot of Stewart-Haas, but that's not a lineup that I mind looking at. it would be, the bottom line would be, it'd be very hard to make a DraftKings lineup and not include Martin Truex Jr. in it. I think that's just a nuts misprice on their end. So that's going to do it. If you watched the first video, thank you. If you're just now joining, thank you for watching this video. That's going to kind of be the format in these ones going forward, unless we happen to get a weekend where qualifying is more than the day before the actual race. So we'll just have to kind of play it by ear. But again, I just want to get the content out there to everybody, to give them a chance to watch it before the actual race, and not, putting out the video late on a Saturday night or early Sunday morning, and then you have a very limited window to consume that information. Information is key in daily fantasy, and obviously for all of the updates and the qualifying and the final projections and all that kind of stuff, join the Discord in the link below. Again, thank you for watching. Enjoy the race this weekend. Good luck if you're playing. If you're just a fan, enjoy the race. It should be a good one. They've all been incredible so far this year, so really a fan of this new car, and hopefully that trend continues. Everybody, have a great weekend.